Well, for many people this time of year, it's early August, means starting to plant fall food plots. And so some of you may have already started, some of you are going to be starting soon. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about fertilizer today. And what I'm going to be applying today is I've got 200 pounds of potash. It's 0060. So when we look at a tag of a fertilizer, the first number is going to be for the nitrogen, then the next number is the phosphorus, and then the third number is the potassium. And with this, what that 0060 means is, these are 50-pound bags. There's not 60 pounds of potassium in this 50-pound bag. You need that's if you're applying 100 pounds. Now keep in mind, having a soil test is very important, and the soil test is going to tell you how many pounds you need, and then you need to try to match it up with the different numbers of your fertilizer options that are available to you. But that's for an acre. So if you're only doing a half of an acre, you'd want to you'd want to divide that number by 2. Or if you're doing 2 acres, you'd multiply by 2, and so on. So keep that in mind. And a soil test is really, really key. And oftentimes I'll see in some of these seed company bags and such, they'll say, for best results get a soil test, which I 100% agree with. But then they'll say, in lieu of that, add maybe 300 pounds of triple 19. And that may work in many situations, but on this property here, we've got a high phosphorus level already. So why do I want to add more phosphorus? And so I want to buy this fertilizer that's going to help my crop, and generally there's going to be some type of limiting factor, and that could be the nitrogen, it could be the phosphorus, potassium, and such. But then there's also micronutrients to think about. So oftentimes I like to get a soil test that includes the micronutrients. And on this property I've had to add some boron, but you might also have to add some sulfur and such. And before you even start adding fertilizers, make sure your pH is on par for what you're planting. And so if my soil was a 5 for pH, then a lot of the major nutrients that I'm putting down in the fertilizer is going to get tied up. And so that's not nearly as beneficial, and fertilizer, especially today, is not cheap. But lime, is going to give you more bang for your buck. It's cheaper than fertilizer, but you got to put out a lot more of it. So start with that. But with the different fertilizers, if I was putting on, let's say, urea, which is a high level of nitrogen, I'd either want to incorporate that into the soil, or I'd want a good rain coming shortly after I put that out, because otherwise a lot of it will volatilize, go up back into the atmosphere. Our atmosphere is mostly nitrogen, but it will volatilize and the plants won't get that. But with potassium and phosphorus, that's not an issue. But I will say, when you're top seeding or top spreading this stuff, it's really not down to the root zone where the plants would need it. So working it into the ground, especially if you're working the ground to plant the seeds, is a good idea. But with the sandy soil, I try not to turn the soil over unless I absolutely have to. And generally I'll turn it over when I'm first incorporating lime, because if you just have lime on top, eventually it'll change the pH, raise the pH down in the root zone, but it's going to take a lot longer. So incorporating those situations, and that's a good time to incorporate some fertilizer as well. But we'll get this spread today, and hopefully we get some decent rain coming up here, and our plots can really flourish this year, because we got some hungry deer.